We'll take you through massive upsets after a wild event in Daytona Beach.
And I'll tell you which team is flying up the standings.
We'll get you ready for not one, but two events. All that and more coming up next on Inside Major League Pickleball. Welcome to Inside Major League Pickleball San Clemente and New York City edition. I'm Will Daughton, joined by three-time MLP winning general manager Dave Fleming. Dave, we are finally through the halfway point of the 2025 regular season after a wild event in Daytona Beach. Let's go straight into our takeaways from that event, starting off with some massive upsets, looking specifically at the Utah Black Diamonds taking down the New Jersey Fives in a dream breaker. Dave, how the heck did this happen?
I don't think anyone knows, Will, because the way the gender doubles went, Annalee is playing with Krista Getcheva, not with Megan Dazan, who was out sick. They pull out 13-11, wild one, very close. And then the fellas pickle the Black Diamonds. This match is over, but it wasn't. And I don't know how in the world Annalee Waters and Will Howes walk out there with a chance to close this out, and they don't. And they took this for granted. If you gave them truth serum, I guarantee you that's what they would say. And you cannot do that in 1-11. You cannot do that against a team like Utah, which has been playing with perfect energy all year long. I love the way they've played. Maybe they're not as talented as some of the other players. Camaraderie and everything else has been amazing, and they went out and they took it, and that is a huge win for Utah.
And you've got to shout out really quickly Connor Garnett and Tyler Leung. They outscored Will Howes and Zane Navratil 15-3 in the Dream Breaker. And if you just think about how dominant New Jersey was in 2024 in Dream Breakers, a result like this from Utah, who was bottom of the barrel last season, is just shocking. What a win for them. So we see that on Thursday. The very next day, we get the winless Carolina Hogs taking down the Texas Ranchers in another Dream Breaker. Very similar. They drop both gender doubles matches, get it done with mixed doubles. Dave, do you think this result speaks more to Texas or Carolina?
Oh, Texas for sure. Because Carolina, if you have Ben Johns, you can find magic. Now, the fact that they did it in the way that you just described is what was surprising. It wasn't Ben winning both. They didn't win men's. In fact, they got smashed in men's. It was crash it, it was drive it, it was quick. And then why I think this is about Texas, because this happened twice, is you have Christian Alshon and Adetoye Onatoa, two terrific teams, two terrific players, a great team, a team that made the Atlanta Slam final, beating the Johnsons on the way there. They couldn't close this out against Colin Johns and Caitlin Christian, with all due respect to those two players. They are wild favorites in that. Then they had a second chance to close out a match later against the LA Mad Drops. Don't do it. So that is why my eyes are on them, because that team, once they get to a Dream Breaker, they know they're behind the 8 ball. They haven't won one, and this is points they could not afford to give up, and they did.
And just a really tough pressure to be playing when you know you're not the strongest Dream Breaker team and you feel like you have to beat these teams in regulation. There's already a lot of pressure playing 1-11, but when you're like, hey, I really don't want to go to a Dream Breaker, you're just thinking about so many other things than just your two players who are on the court. So we'll see how they deal with that pressure if they potentially make some moves over the next few weeks. But we also saw a lot of third roster players playing in Daytona. We've got Steven Madonia, we've got Pieri Imperato, we've also got Jelena Ingram for the SoCal Hard Eights, and both for the Texas Ranchers, Helena Jansen and Michael Lloyd. What did you see from these players that kind of should help their stock rise a little bit?
I think the idea is just reps. So for these to get a chance to play is it's special for the team. You drafted them or you brought them in and you said, hey, this is an important part of the team. Most of the players you talked about jumped in for injury. Donald Young, for example, could not go for New York, and that's why Madonia got a full weekend of play. those are invaluable reps. Everybody's watching. You're playing against some of the best players in the world. The one I want to talk about is Helena Jansen-Fink got married, so congrats to her just in May. That was a purposeful act, meaning we are going to put her in actually against New York, and we are going to sit out Etta, and then Etta is going to play with Tina Pisnik in the second match. And will general managers use their bench in that fashion? We got back-to-back. Let's make sure that everybody's fresh. We're playing against a team where maybe the fellas can carry it a little bit, and if we get to a dream breaker, I've got my better dream breaker player in there. So I want to see how the coaches and general managers use their roster, but you gotta trust your bench. Not everybody does.
And we also saw in Daytona Beach the Los Angeles Mad Drops show their strength. They go undefeated, pick up 2 huge dream breaker victories over the Texas Ranchers and St. Louis Shock. I mean, it is so nice to see this team at full strength and to see them having this success after injuries and substitutions, all of this off the court stuff. It's a nice story to see them have this success both in Phoenix and in Daytona Beach.
No doubt about it. I mean, Jade Kawamoto, out of control. Just loved watching her play throughout that event. And again, this is a team that has dealt with so much adversity, and now they've got the squad. They show up, and the Shock are shock and awe, baby. Got our crew. We're going to be here. We're going to run over everybody. And they lose their what? And they got beat. And Anna Bright and Kate Fahey lose for the first time because Jade and Catherine have been phenomenal. They are the best female duo in Major League Pickleball right now. They have a skin on the wall from the top 3 teams. No one else is going to touch that. And then the fellas, I said this on the air, and I don't know if they're going to do this or not. You got to change your team name to the LA Mad Drives. They didn't drop anything. They're just wrecking the ball from the baseline, and it's working. It fits the strengths of Hunter Johnson and Kwang Duong. So I'm fascinated. What I do believe is that they have elevated themselves into that area where the 5s are. You have the Flash and the Shock. Settle down. You are the cream of the top of the crop still. But then right below that are the 5s and the Mad Drops. And then we get into Brooklyn, and we'll talk about Columbus, who we haven't seen since like 2004, it feels like. So this is a great, great step forward for LA.
And just another note on that match with St. Louis, because St. Louis was the home team in that matchup. And so they got to pick the mixed doubles matchups, and they still weren't able to close things out in regulation. And so when you think about, we're halfway through the regular season, thinking about the postseason where we expect to see both St. Louis and Los Angeles, that's got to give the Mad Drops a lot of confidence if they find themselves playing against the St. Louis in one of those later rounds.
Yeah, and they're like, bring it on a dream breaker too. So when the playoffs get tight, winning 3 out of 4 when you've got the best teams is just going to be really hard. It's certainly going to happen, but you're going to have a playoffs littered with dream breakers, and they're sending those 2 fellas out, and then Catherine, and then Jade is just magic some of the time. She got 4 in a row to get them that win over the Ranchers, so let's go.
And so we see the Mad Drops surging. Let's go ahead and take a look at the premier level standings. We've got the rankings on a points per match basis. We've got the Mad Drops there in 5th place, just right below the Brooklyn Pickleball team. But Dave, you mentioned something earlier about kind of the tiers of the teams. Dallas, St. Louis kind of in a tier of their own, then New Jersey and Los Angeles. Do you think that New Jersey, how close would you say they are to that upper tier of Dallas and St. Louis?
I don't think they are. They think they are. But I think they would admit that until they actually beat one of those teams, that then they can be into that. Megan Dazan, despite not playing the first day, was very good after that. So she's terrific. She's a top player. All this talk about nervous next to Anna Lee, that is over. So I just want to see, can the fellas keep going, because they were hot coming into that. They lost a couple matches where you would go, And the Dream Breaker versus some of the others, is it good enough or not? I know it was last year, but it hasn't been as good this year, so they're not there for me.
And you also kind of look down at the standings again. just the difference in number 8 and number 9. That in the 8th spot, you've got the Columbus Sliders at 1.82 points per match. Then number 9, Utah Black Diamonds at 1.27 points per match. That is a huge difference. You know, and we are going to see some of those teams play each other, but it's really, you've kind of got the top 8 established, and then 8 through 12, it's just a dogfight right now.
Yeah, and that's why grabbing a point or two for Utah, for example, in the win we talked about, maybe that's the difference in making the playoffs or not. Literally that upset, and we will see. I think Columbus is going to go flying up the chart. Again, another team that hasn't been able to play at full strength in a while, so look out for them. But yes, top 8 are there, 9, 10, 11, 12. Who's going to grab it? Will there be moves made or not? And we shall see. But that's why the whole slogan, every point matters. It really does.
And, you know, we talk here about the standings. When we're filming this, we do expect to see a lot of waiver moves, potentially trades over the next few days. So, you know, are there any teams specifically that you think we could see make some moves, or how do you think that's going to pan out as we near the end of waiver period number 2? Having
sat in the GM chair, you're trying to do a lot. So I know the intention is there significantly. Obviously, we've talked about some of the teams, Carolina with whatever's going on there. We've talked about, can Texas really vault forward with the lineup that they know can't win a dream breaker against the best teams? Are there other places where there's chemistry issues? So I expect you, while I'm calling PPA San Clemente, to jump back in here and have lots of breaking news. We'll just see if it's a ton, because it's complicated to get everything done. But some moves are coming, baby.
Will Daughton here with a breaking news update. We said when we initially filmed that we expected to see some roster shakeups during the final waiver period, and we certainly did see that. 14 players are on new teams, so I'll take you through who has a new home in MLP, starting with Michael Lloyd. Lloyd is now on the California Black Bears after being traded by the Texas Rangers in exchange for Rafa Hewitt and cash considerations. He will join forces with Juan Benitez, Lane Sleeth, and Lena Padega-Maite. That trade took place on June 10th. These next few players all found new homes during MLP waiver period number 2, which took place on June 16th. The Carolina Hogs claimed Roscoe Bellamy from the SoCal Heartaches and waived Brandon French. In response, SoCal brought up 17-year-old John Lucian Goins. The Heartaches are really going after a lot of young talent, and I'll have more on that later. Felicity DeLaura is now on the Texas Rangers after being traded by the New York Hustlers in exchange for Helena Jansen and cash considerations. Jansen, now on New York, should be an instant starter for the Hustlers. These next few moves were all made during the bench player replacement period, which took place on June 17th. In arguably the biggest move of the season so far, Carolina added Martin Emmerich and dropped Colin Johns. The Hogs still have Ben Johns along with Bellamy and now Emmerich on the male side. The Texas Rangers added Wyatt Stone and dropped Rafa Hewitt. So Colin Johns and Rafa Hewitt are two big names who are now not on an MLP roster. We also saw Grayson Golden get added by the Orlando Squeeze and Luana Stanciu get added by the New York Hustlers. They are temporary substitutes for Australia's Tom Evans and Helena Spiritus, who have been advised to stay in Australia until their visas are fully approved. When Evans and Spiritus are back in the US, they will retake their roster spots, and Golden and Stanciu will be immediately dropped. And finally, these last 4 moves all took place on June 18th and 19th. Judith Castillo was traded from the SoCal Heartaches to the St. Louis Shock in exchange for 15-year-old Kaylin Campbell, the younger sister of Kaysen Campbell. The Heartaches now have 3 teenagers on their roster, with Campbell, John Lucian Goins, and Jelena Ingram. And in the only move of the challenger level waiver period, the Florida Smash added Paula Rivas-Palau and dropped Sarah Ansbury. Rivas-Palau will join forces with Martina Frantova, Travis Rettenmeyer, and Kaysen Campbell. The final move I'll talk about is a big one. Mari Humberg traded back to the New Jersey Fives from the DC Pickleball team in exchange for Krista Getcheva and cash considerations. Humberg, of course, was on the 2024 New Jersey squad that was 1 match away from winning the Premier level title, but was traded away to the Challenger level right before the player drop deadline. Now that she's back, we'll have to see if she competes with Megan Dazan to be the other starting female next to Anna Lee Waters. As for Getcheva, her first opportunity to represent her new team will be at Edward Jones MLP San Clemente. Well, that was a lot, But that is a quick rundown of all the players who are on new teams going into the second half of the regular season. Enjoy the rest of the show. And we've spent so much time talking about Daytona, potential moves. Let's look ahead to the next events on the Major League Pickleball schedule, starting off with the Edward Jones MLP San Clemente, June 26th through the 29th at Lifetime Rancho San Clemente, just one of the most iconic venues in all of pickleball. Let's take a look at the competing teams for that event. At the premier level, we've got the Columbus Sliders, Brooklyn Pickleball Team, Los Angeles Mad Drops, Phoenix Flames, SoCal Heartaches, and the Utah Black Diamonds. And of course, also at this event, we'll have all 6 challenger level teams. Those, of course, the Bay Area Breakers, the DC Pickleball Team, California Black Bears, Florida Smash, Las Vegas Night Owls, and the Nashville Chefs. Whew, it's a lot of teams going to be there in Southern California. Looking ahead to our top storylines for this event, you mentioned them earlier, the Columbus Sliders. We haven't seen them on the court in nearly 2 months, and we haven't seen them at full strength since the first event in Orlando because CJ Klinger couldn't play in Columbus. How do you think they're going to fare this at this event?
Fantastic if they're all there and healthy. Andre Diascu, love him as a captain, love him as the settling influence. He and CJ Klinger have won a Carvana PPA Tour event together. You have Leah Jansen and Paris Todd, so you get both good women's doubles, mixed doubles, and singles. Those are the magic. If you can have a player that's great at all 3, and they happen to have a pair of those, that's why this team, I guarantee you, none of the teams at the top want to run into this because you get into a dream breaker, you're in trouble because CJ and Andre, while they're not singles specialists, they can take care, and then you run into those 2 ladies, and that is a problem. So because most of the teams have maybe 1 lady that is consistently playing singles, but not 2. So I think they're going to be great, again, if healthy.
And we talked about one team that we think could do very well. Let's talk about another team, the Phoenix Flames. Just so exciting. Team Showtime, as you've called them. But, man, at their hometown event in Phoenix, they lost their last 4 matches. They just have not looked good. They lost to the SoCal Heartaches. That was their first win of the season. So my question for you, Dave, we've seen Jeannie Bouchard play with Jessie Irvin and Jack Sock. She has not had a high level. We saw Alex Walker fill in for Jeannie for 1 match. Do you think the Flames should have Alex Walker in their starting lineup over Jeannie Bouchard?
I mean, that's something they have to look at because, again, it comes down to what is important to you, however, Will. So if you want Jeannie out there playing, and this is about promoting the brand and everything else, the followers isn't even close. The level on the court we saw in Phoenix, I thought Alex outplayed Jeannie. So that's the decision that team has to make. Which is more important? It's their call, but it's obvious in both areas who in Phoenix was the better at both promoting and then playing.
And so we'll see if Phoenix potentially makes some roster modifications at their next event. Let's go into our marquee matchup for San Clemente. It's the Mad Drops taking on the Sliders Saturday, June 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And you talked about dream breakers for Columbus. This might be one of the only teams where I don't feel crazy saying that they could beat the Mad Drops in a dream breaker.
Yeah, the fellas is where I get a little nervous here because can they hang with Hunter and Q at the top with CJ and Andre? And then in the ladies, yes, I actually think they're favored big time. I know I gave a lot of flowers to Jade at the beginning of this show, and I mean it. However, she has been taking out the Tina Pisniks of the world, again, with all due respect to Tina. So when you run into having to play Leia or Paris, depending on how that matchup goes. So this is where the fellas for Columbus have to stay close. Not too many 3-1s, no 4-0s, and then turn it over to the ladies to finish it. And this very well could be a dream breaker. This is a phenomenal match. And again, we talked about the tiers. These are 2 teams that are trying to say, I am right below. I'm in the clowns tier, if you will.
And for Columbus, you know, they haven't played in a while, have not been talked about a ton. So they want to remind folks that, hey, we're still here. We're still, you know, top 5, top 6, maybe even top 4. And LA, of course, trying to prove the same exact thing. So it's a matchup between teams who both have a lot to prove.
No doubt.
So let's go. We've been to San Clemente. Let's go into New York. MLP New York, July 3rd through the 6th at Sport Time, Randall's Island. Spending 4th of July weekend in the Big Apple, Dave. What's better than this?
Nothing. Fireworks all around the city, the skyscrapers, and fireworks on the 20 by 44. What else could you want?
Let's take a look at our 6 competing Premier level teams for MLP New York, starting with the Brooklyn Pickleball team, Carolina Hogs, Columbus Sliders, Miami Pickleball Club, New York Hustlers, and the Orlando Squeeze. Those teams, in addition to the 6 challenger level teams that we discussed earlier, will all be in action in the Big Apple. And we've got top storylines talking about Orlando and Miami. For Orlando, can they keep pace with the top teams? They played a lot of matches in those first couple events, had such a strong start, but we've seen them falter when playing, some of the top teams. St. Louis, comes to mind for that as well. We'll see if they can kind of remind folks that they should be considered one of the upper tier teams as well.
Yeah, and I think the reality of where that team is has now settled in. They are a good team. Are they a great team? I don't know. Were they excited about the start that Sam Parker got off to and how she has been a part of this with 3 very established players around her in Staxrud, in Dylan Frazier, and Lacey Schneeman? Yes, she has looked the part. Is that good enough to beat the top 4 or 5? I don't know. I don't think they know. And this is an opportunity. They have done a great job of beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And that's exactly what happened in Austin. They ran through the gauntlet. The only team they beat was Miami, and it's probably the only team that they were favored to beat. So that is the reality of sports. Sometimes the teams are just better than you. I love what Fed has done as a captain, as willing his team. He has been terrific in positivity and showing his own energy and getting the most out of them. They are a very good dream breaker team with the 2 fellas at the top. Sam Parker's a very good singles player. Lacey's had a lot of good wins. So can they find a win above them? We'll find out.
We've also got the Miami Pickleball Club. They were also at that event in Austin, played Orlando, had a tough going, played some of the top teams. Yeah. Like we said earlier, they are currently in the final playoff spot, so can they do enough to stay ahead of Chicago and Atlanta?
It's Maya Bowie for me, and she started out 1-9, and I'm like, oh dear, this is somebody that they were hoping would find it, would hope that, man, can she really thrust her way into and be in one of these? I mean, Rohrabacher and Fahey is a big, big ask, but a player that's got potential and is on the rise going down the list. And I love that she has righted the ship. She's had some good wins in women's doubles and is a player that I have my eye on, quite frankly. And that is a critical part of that. Millie Rain's been playing very good. You have the very steady Frenchman and Noé Cliff, Jay DeVilliers, 100% healthy, magnifique Jay. So will they do it? I think they are the team to get in there with this, but I want to see maybe can they find an upset like these couple other teams have, because Utah ain't going away.
Let's look at our marquee matchup for New York. It's a repeat of a Saturday night pickleball matchup we had in Orlando. It's the Squeeze taking on the Brooklyn Pickleball team. Now, Brooklyn beat Orlando in front of their home crowd 3-1. The Squeeze will be out for revenge. Do you think they can do it?
Brooklyn is another team that has a little chip on your shoulder. I know you do, because you're sick of hearing about everyone but you. They didn't play a lot at the beginning of the year, so they're watching other teams vault up the standings, even though their points per match was solid. So, again, they think they're really good. I mean, you start out with Rachel Rohrabacher and Jackie Kawamoto to get your team started. You have very familiar mixed doubles pairings. I think Brooklyn's still favored. They're in their home city, so let the Brooklyn fans bring it, because Orlando, Squeeze Nation did in a big way. I think Brooklyn's favored. This is one of those where, as we just talked about, if Orlando wants to be considered above the tier that they're currently in, which is solid in the playoffs but not at the top, we'll find out. It's a great matchup.
And another thing to consider with this matchup, Riley Newman did suffer lower body injury while going for a Burt at MLP Phoenix. So not sure if he's going to be in San Clemente, not sure if he's going to be ready to go by New York, but if he is, that would be a huge boost for Brooklyn as well.
No doubt about it. And I know he's a scratch for the PPA part of San Clemente. Hoping to come back is his exact quote to me about that situation. Now, Pat Smith jumped in and went 2-0, isn't at the top of the player standings. He's undefeated. That's the winter soldier for you.
You can catch this matchup and all the other electrifying matchups from San Clemente and New York across a myriad of networks: Pickleball TV, Tennis Channel, MSG Networks, all the pickleball you could ever want. And that is going to do it for this edition of Inside Major League Pickleball. 2 huge events, a lot of points on the lines coming up. I will be in San Clemente on the call. Cannot wait for that. I know Dave's going to be in New York as well. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Inside Major League Pickleball.
Peace.